Hi, I'm Dempsey Palat, and this week I'm reviewing Hellboy. Was directed by Neil Marshall and stars David Harbour, Mila Jovovich, Sasha Lane, Daniel Day Kim, and Ian McShane. And I just noticed that rhymed. But in all seriousness though, this film is actually a reboot of the film series based on the Dark Horse comic book character of the same name, which came out a little over a decade ago. So if you're wondering why or where you've heard of Hellboy from before, it's because you probably saw one of the two great films that Guillermo del Toro did early on in his career. But instead of asking him to come back and do a third, to round out the trilogy, Hollywood was just like, nah, let's just hit a hard restart on this one. Everyone else is doing it, right? We could create a shared universe. Well, I don't know if all that happened, but essentially, we got a brand new film, and you're going to hear my thoughts on it. And before I give you my entire take on it, I should probably tell you what it's about, right? This film follows the world's greatest paranormal detective, Hellboy, as he tries to stop an evil sorceress from coming back from the dead and pretty much destroying the whole world. And in case you haven't picked up how I felt about this film by now, it sucked. This film was awful. I'm just so disappointed, and I think a lot of that disappointment actually comes from the fact that I loved the originals. And even though Guillermo del Toro wasn't a part of this one, or they didn't want him to be a part of whatever the story is behind that, I really don't even want to think about it because it just makes me angry about how this film actually turned out. I still would have thought that they would have kept his vision in some capacity, especially because it really closely resembles the style in which the comics are told. But no. This film, never in a million years would I thought that this film would go as south as it does with this source material. This film is bad across the board. For one, the direction is just so scattered, and that to me is probably one of the most surprising things about this film, because I've actually seen some of the stuff that Neil Marshall has done. He's actually directed a couple of episodes of Game of Thrones too, one of them being my personal favorite, Blackwater. And man, it's just so bizarre for me to imagine that somebody, with skills like his could let some of the things that happen in this film happen. The acting is just as bad. I mean, I'll give it to David Harbour. He really does have good intentions with his character, and I can see where his character's going, but because of just how off everything is, it just, it comes off as just really bizarre. And the writing is just as bad as everything else. There's actually this one scene at the end of the film in the third act where, Hellboy's fighting this creature or whatever, and he's about to give it, the final blow, and he says, "Let's make barbecue chicken." What? The biggest problem with this film, though, has to be its continuity, or its lack thereof, and its inattention to detail. I can't even begin to tell you how many things I saw in the first 5 minutes that troubled me. So much so that it immediately turned me off from the film, and it eventually got so bad that I took out my phone and started taking notes because I was sure that the problems would only grow exponentially over the next 2 hours, and I was right. There are so many weird things that happen in this movie. One of them being, like I said, in the first 5 minutes, Hellboy is on his phone, and trust me, this isn't a spoiler for anything, but Hellboy's on his phone, on speakerphone, talking to Ian McShane's character, and we can tell very much that it's speakerphone. And I mean, it doesn't even matter whether or not it's speakerphone because of what happens next. The camera zooms in on the phone, and it's an iPhone, okay, a regular iPhone, and we can see very clearly that it has the green and red buttons on it, like it's waiting for a call to be picked up or declined. Like, how is he talking to somebody if he hasn't even picked up the phone yet? That doesn't make any sense. And how did nobody pick that up in post-production? It's weird things like that, okay? Later on in the film, when they start to talk about Hellboy's origin and how he was brought here with the help of the Nazis during World War II, things actually get even stranger, okay? There's actually a scene where we see a Nazi wearing 3D glasses, but they're just not any regular 3D glasses. They're Nazi 3D glasses, and I don't even know what that means. That's probably the strangest thing that I've ever said in my life, the strangest sentence I've ever uttered out of my mouth. But that is what they are. That should give you a grand idea of just how bizarre this film is. And it doesn't stop there. I mean, even further down the line in the film, you know, Hellboy, as I said before, is trying to stop this sorceress from destroying the world or whatever. And he goes from having, you know, this sleek helicopter with his crew traveling from place to place to just, you know, just magically appearing from one place to another. There's literally a moment where he's on an island and it's never explained how he got there. And after he's done doing whatever it is on the island, he magically appears in England for the final act. Never explained how he got there either. He shows up in a car, but he just got from an island. And the transition is just lost. I was just thrown all over the place with this movie. So much so that I didn't even remember writing this, but when I looked back at my notes at the end of the film, I saw at one point that I wrote, "What the hell is happening?" I'm not even kidding. I'm not kidding. That's how lost I was. As ridiculous as this film is, though, it surprisingly did have a saving grace. And no, it wasn't David Harbour. It was actually Ian McShane. The guy looks like he's having the time of his life in this movie. And, I mean, then again, he looks like he's having the time of his life in everything that he does. That's how you know he's passionate about being an actor. But here, he literally lights up the screen in every scene that he appears in. And every time he showed up, the film got 1% better, in my opinion. I think I can see what the studio was trying to go for with this film, but man, did it miss its mark by a mile. And its R rating didn't really help much either. I mean, it actually kind of felt like an excuse for there just to be excessive violence. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but here it just does not work. Personally, I feel like this film could have been better and could have done a whole lot better at the box office if it were PG-13. On second thought, nah. This film was Hellboy. And for that, I'm going to give it half a star.
It's the trash, isn't it?
It's the sweet, sweet trash.
Guys, thanks so much for watching. As always, if you like this video, hit that like button, and if you're not subscribed, I would ask you please subscribe. I post new videos weekly, and I've really got some interesting stuff planned for next week, fingers crossed, so make sure you stay tuned for that. If you happen to like this movie, by any off chance, or if you saw something in it that I didn't necessarily see, feel free to tell me and let's talk about it in the comment section below. I believe that other people, most people that saw this film, felt just about the same as I did, but you know, everybody has their own opinion, and if you felt differently from me, I'd love to hear why. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for watching once again. It means the world to me that you take the time out of your day to view these videos. It really does. And I love making them for you, and I cannot wait to continue making them for you. So I should probably get back to work. Until next time, I'm Dempsey Pilat. Take care.